welcome to a new episode of Catholic Girl on the Radio. I'm Rita Saikali, and in today's episode, we are talking about love, being patient, and we also have an amazing interview with Clyde Guzman, who is one of the most prominent Catholic activists online today on social media. Stay tuned. I want you to do something. I want you to stop and think about that person that you love so much that you just want him or her to change. You know, now that you've thought of that person, if you were up to you, you'd probably change him or her overnight. Like, you're just like, oh my God, I'm so frustrated. I love you so much. I just want you to be better, right? And I don't know about you, but at least I would, right? But you guys, Corinthians 1:13-4 tells us what love is, right? It starts listing of what love is. So it says love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy. And we tend to read it as a list, you know, like I need tomatoes, I need cucumbers, I need lettuce. You just list it one by one. But in most cases, we don't stop and actually think about what this means. Love is patient. Break them up. Love is patient. Love is kind. So if I was to say, love is patient, would I genuinely be expressing my love towards that person when I place them under the pressure of change before all things? Right? Like, I'm just pressuring them to change as quickly as possible. Which naturally comes from goodwill, but there's more to it here. There is patience, and that is what I'm lacking at times. What you're lacking at times when you're pressuring someone to change so rapidly. So, after all, I'm where I am today, and you are where you are today because God was patient with me, and God is still patient with me, and He's still patient with you. Think about that. Think about your spiritual transformation. Think about your career transformation. Think about your personal transformation. Was God not patient with you as you were transforming? As He was making you into a better version of yourself? Weren't those people that you love so much patient with you so that you can change? They loved you even in the sinful times? That transformation, that patience is a huge part of it. So love is patient. Are you loving patiently? That's the question here. Think about it this way. God loved and loves you so much that although He's capable of changing you overnight, He allowed you to go through the journey with its joy and its struggles. Remember those times where you cried over something? That was making you grow into the person you are today. Remember that time you laughed so hard it was amazing? That contributed to who you are today. So God, who's capable of changing me overnight, He didn't. He allowed me to go through the journey. And He's allowing you to go through the journey. And yes, the journey has its struggles, it has its ups and downs, but that is how you learn, and that's how you develop, and that's how you grow. And these are experiences that you look back on your life and you think, I did this. And God allows us to go through this journey, and it's amazing. And He did that, or He does that, so that you can grow. And so, if God did that with me and with you as we were growing, wouldn't it be fair that now is my turn to be patient with those I love? I mean, sometimes you pray a lot and your partner doesn't. Or you believe and your partner doesn't. And you just want to show him that you're right. Or show him that that this is better, that God is so amazing. And instead it kind of pushes them away. That's not the kind of change we want. Change takes time, and change takes patience. Change comes with time. For example, maybe the person you love smokes cigarettes and you hate it. And he or she can't be expected to stop smoking within a day's notice, right? If you love me, you'd stop smoking. Well, yes, that person loves you. But it's a struggle. And you have to be patient with them. You have to be there to support them. You have to be there to help them. To give them support and to tell them if they failed once, it's okay. Pick up and try again. Fail again, you pick up and you try again one more time. And eventually with time, maybe the breaks become longer between the cigarette and the cigarette. What that person needs is your love, your prayers, and your support. Be patient with them. Because God is patient with you. And again, I talk about love and I talk about relationship and all these things, but I really, really, really want to make sure that you guys know that I'm talking about a healthier relationship, okay? If you are in a toxic relationship and that relationship is harming you physically or emotionally, that would not be the time to be patient, okay? That would not be the time to sit there and just take in everything. Okay, that would be the time to leave and assess from the outside. Okay? Because you are worth being loved, and you are worth loving as God is loving, and being loved as God is loved. I guess, yeah, that would be the way. But what I'm saying is that if you're in a healthy relationship, and a healthy relationship isn't always a perfectly happy one, just so we're clear. Every relationship has problems. Every relationship has its ups and downs and its journey, because that's part of life. Sometimes you're upset, and sometimes you're happy, and sometimes you're annoyed. But love is at the center, and respect and good treatment is at the center. And placing someone else's needs before yours. Also, thinking of the family as a unit. But, you guys, think about love being patient, if it's in the right context as well. Earlier we talked about love being patient. Let's mention a little bit here of love being kind. And that's, again, 1 Corinthians 13:4. We're still in the same verse. And it's saying, so dictionary.com defines kind as the following 3 things. 1, of good and a benevolent nature or disposition. 2, having, showing, or proceeding from benevolence. 3, indulgence, considerate, or helpful, humane. If love is kind, and kind is all these things, we can conclude that love is also all of the above, right? Love must be of a good nature. Love is benevolent. And lastly, love is considerate, helpful, and humane. Is your love towards your partner of good nature, or is it selfish? Is it charitable? Are you giving of yourself? Is your love considerate or just self-centered? Is your love helpful, or does it present constant obstacles? Is it humane? You guys, love is kind. There is no other way around it. If we want to love, be loved, and be in love, we must be kind. That's part of the package. And then if we continue that verse, we have love does not envy, right? So let me tell you a little story. In 2013, I competed for a beauty pageant, and at that time, I won Miss Congeniality. But I didn't win the crown. And in one of the pictures that the photographers posted on the crowning, I looked really happy. And so I remember like people telling me, like commenting on that picture and noting how happy I looked, while many of the other girls looked upset when their names was not called out. And to me, it was an easy choice to be happy. To begin with, I'm not a very competitive person. Like, I am competitive, and I want to get somewhere good in my life, but I don't think that we have to compete for the same spot, and if I don't get it, that's the end of me. I think God has a plan, and part of it is that I'm competitive in my own way, and I grow towards Him. And everyone has that path to grow towards Him, not against each other, but with each other towards God. And so anyways, so that choice to me was very happy. And I knew at the time that God's will had been done. That was it. I won't lie to you and tell you that I didn't want to win, but not winning was God's blessing because it was not where He wanted me to be, right? And so, anyways, they noted my happiness because it was genuinely there. And again, like, I'm not saying I'm best, but this is a personal example that happened in my life, and people commented on it. And I think when I read the verse, love does not envy, that image, or the image of that night, comes back into my mind, and those comments come back to my mind. By the grace of God, this was one of my successful ways of applying God's teaching or the gospel to real life. And sometimes we do this and we are good at it, and sometimes we take the gospel and we try to apply it and we fail, and that's okay. And we go to confession, and God forgives us, and we start again and we start anew. We all have these moments. So what I want you to do today is think about that moment of yours and know that you can do it again and again and again. You can apply that gospel more and more and more and more and more. And I think at that time when we talk about love does not envy, really, or doesn't envy, really the core of that verse is that God has a plan, and He is doing this for a reason. He's giving that to that person for a reason, and not giving me this same thing for a reason, because God has a plan. And when I realize that, the sooner I realize that, the more I realize that I can't be envious, because I know that whatever they have that I want will not serve me. Because this is not where I'm going to serve God. This is not, it's like telling you can have, tools to renovate your home, but your home is perfectly renovated. What would you need those for? You won't need them for anything. So God is giving you the tools you need, and God is giving the other person the tools they need.
All right, you guys, so are you ready for our interview? Joining me today is Clyde Guzman straight from DC. What's up, Clyde?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very tired, very stressed, especially of all the stuff that's happening all over the world, especially United States, but I'm surviving.
God's got this. This is in His plan. So let me tell the people a little bit more about you before we start actually having a good conversation. So Clyde has, as I said in our ad or in earlier this week, he works with social media, and he does a lot of Catholic stuff on social media, much like I do, but on a much bigger scale. So he runs 2 accounts, and these are Latin Catholicism and Catholic _ theology. And they're wonderful for anyone who's looking to understand Catholic theology. And he also works with one of the biggest Catholic social media channels or companies, and that is Catholic Connect. And he even runs their page in Spanish. And altogether, his following is more than 300,000. So this man gets to preach and tell and share the good news with the entire world. And right now it's at 300,000 followers. So that's great. Praise be to God. I can go on and on and on about this guy. He is also a pro-life activist and a political activist for, obviously, for the Catholic Church, and he converted into Catholicism. And let's start there. Why did you convert?
Well, mainly because I've been seeking for the truth my entire life. I mean, I grew up in a very anti-Catholic family, even though personally I was never anti-Catholic. And discovering, to make a long story short, really, I've studied so much about Catholicism just by reading and just watching a lot of things. As a bookworm myself, I mean, it really wasn't that difficult, considering that in general, like, in summary, like all the anti-Catholicism out there in the world, most of it, if not all of it, is based around misconceptions and ignorance. And so, how would you feel if someone were to say stuff about you that are based on misconceptions and based on things that are not factually or partially correct? How would you feel?
Not good, but I think it happens a lot in the Middle East.
I
So
mean, it happens all over, not just in realms of spirituality, but in
yeah.
any walks of life. And so, after so many years of studying the faith, I mean, I received a lot of blessings, but also a lot of disadvantages. Those disadvantages meaning that I lost most of my friends, and obviously, the relationship between me and my family was obviously extremely difficult.
So when we talk about conversion, what did you convert from?
I was raised my entire life an evangelical Protestant.
Okay, so let me tell you a little bit more about the Middle Eastern culture, and I think it comes from the fact that we're too busy to persecute each other. Um, we're too busy being persecuted by others to persecute each other. So when we look at Christianity in the Middle East or in Lebanon per se, we kind of think, okay, so here in America, we use the label, oh, I'm Catholic or I'm Protestant or I'm evangelical, whatever. In Lebanon, if you ask someone what religion are you, they will tell you I'm Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And that Christian generally includes Catholicism and Orthodox.
Yes, that is correct.
And so when we talk about conversion in Lebanon, no one's really converting to Catholicism. I mean, from like Orthodox or from Catholics to back to Orthodox. We do have a few Protestants, but I don't think the community is very big. So for us or for our audience who's listening, do you think there's a big difference between Catholicism and the Protestant churches? Is that why you said conversion versus maybe I chose to become a Catholic Christian?
Well, mainly, I could have used becoming Catholic Christian as a way of expressing my love for ecumenism. Well, but at the same time, the factual labels, still remain the same. The reason why non-Catholic Christians are often referred to, well, strictly Protestants in that particular matter, is because of history. The reason why they're referred to as Protestants is, well, I don't have to give you the whole history lesson, but it's because of what happened back in the 1500s, mainly with Martin Luther separating himself from the authority of the church. And the term Protestant obviously came as a nickname for those people that, separated themselves along with various other reformers.
Absolutely. I really think like it's a it's a political issue. But that hate that you felt within your home or within your family or within the evangelical Protestant church towards the Catholic Church, is it still as political as it was when the church first reformed, do you think? Or you don't, if you don't know, it's fine. It was just a
I
arbitrary question
mean,
out there.
if you're referring to the level of anti-Catholicism as it is today, as it was, centuries ago, it's completely different. You need to keep in mind that culture determines the type of person that you will eventually become. And obviously, since culture has been evolving for so many centuries, particularly in the United States, obviously the level of anti-Catholicism has changed. you need to keep in mind that anti-Catholicism was different today than it was obviously decades ago. Historically speaking, especially in the United States, there has always been strong levels of anti-Catholicism. That anti-Catholicism obviously grew tremendously, especially in the 1900s. And even after John F. Kennedy, who was the first Catholic president of the United States. But even after his tragic accident that occurred in him in 1963, obviously tensions between evangelicals and Protestants grew, but it wasn't necessarily the same as it was before Kennedy became president. But it wasn't until Ronald Reagan, who probably who actually contributed more for the Catholic Church in America than any other president in the United States, mainly because of his relationship with Pope St. John Paul II.
Well, JP is amazing. So if there's someone that can change the world, it was JP.
Indeed.
So with that said, do you think the Catholic Church is still hated within America? Or is it still losing its power? Where do we stand?
Well, in terms of credibility, you need to keep in mind that obviously every Catholic is a product of their time. Obviously, the church of today is not the same church as it was decades ago. And especially in the times that we've been living in, particularly with all the crazy sexual abuse scandals, and especially a lot of the leaders have been dealing with this stuff, it's really depressing, because it's very difficult nowadays for a lot of people to take Catholicism or even the church or church teaching seriously, since we have a lot of bad things that are happening. And I always tell people when people are asking me, why you're Catholic, or how can you be Catholic for X, Y, and Z reason, or why would you be Catholic in spite of all the bad stuff that's happening? Why can't you just leave the Catholic Church? Well, the answer is simple. There's always been Judases in the church for almost 2,000 years, and why would I leave Jesus because of Judas?
I like that. I always say, if your home is leaking, would you fix the leak or would you destroy the house?
Or if your house is on fire and you have the means to fix it and put out the fire, are you going to go to your neighbor's house and you stay there while your house is burning to the ground, while like I said, you have the means to fix it?
That's very true. I think we have an obligation towards the church to actually maintain it. It's not just about leadership. I think it's really about us and what we can contribute to it. And you know my theory or my philosophy on Catholicism or on working with the church is freely you were given, freely give. And I think we talked about this before. But the biggest aspect of it for me is that the church gave me Jesus and it gave me the Eucharist. And that's something I could never repay. That's the greatest gift anyone could ever give me.
Exactly.
And so no matter what I do for the church, it's not enough. Not because the church is greedy, but because of this great gift that I was given or that you were given. It's just there's no way to pay it back.
There's no way to pay it back. And the promises and the message that our Lord gave us in John 6 and other verses about us receiving him both physically and spiritually in the presence of the bread and wine, transforming into the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. Regardless of whatever happens in the church all over, doctrinal truth cannot change. What is objectively true can never change, no matter how much we try to change it. Even if we're living through terrible times, God is still present, even though he's not physically present here, because he left us a man in charge to guide his flock, aka the vicar of Christ. He is still technically physically present in the Holy Eucharist, in the Blessed Sacrament. And with all the countless Eucharistic miracles that we've been having throughout history, especially the Eucharistic miracles that have been existing in these past few decades, there is no denying that even though Christ may not be physically present in its entirety today, he is still physically present in some way, shape, or form, and that is through the Blessed Sacrament.
From someone who came from a Protestant home, you didn't live the Eucharist as a kid, and you didn't have your first communion. I mean, as a kid, normally is the process for Catholics. What do you feel is the difference between having the Eucharist and not having the Eucharist, especially because the reason why I'm asking is because a lot of Catholics take the Eucharist for granted, and they walk up to the priest as if it's just, it's a tradition. We just go receive a bread and wine and then we walk away. So what's your take on that?
Well, for me, obviously growing up as an evangelical, I've always felt that there was something missing in these, quote, worship services. Because no matter how much good preaching the minister will say, I felt that there was something missing. I didn't felt that that was truly authentic worship. Because obviously the term worship is a term that obviously nowadays denotes to giving such love and adoration and respect towards the divine. And obviously, since our separated brethren, our evangelical brothers and sisters, are lacking that essential piece to make that their worship full and complete and unitive, that is something that sadly not many people are able to experience. Because me, like I said, me growing up, I always felt that there was something missing. And when I was doing a lot of research, and especially particularly in the areas of the real presence, I came to realize that we going to church, the whole purpose of going to church as Catholics or Eastern Orthodox, is not just solely to see the person, the celebrant, whether it may be the bishop, the archbishop, or the priest, or whoever. It's to see Jesus Christ, not man. Yes, we're able to see the man, the minister that Christ himself ordained and permitted to hold such tremendous power over the flock. But like I said, the whole point of going to church is really just to see Jesus, transubstantiating from our altars every single day, not just every Sunday, not just 4 times a year, not just 2 times a year, but every day, because our Lord said specifically, do this each day in remembrance of me.
What do you think was the pivotal point for you that said, I believe in the Eucharist? To those who are listening who don't, what would you tell them?
The pivotal point was, it's simple. By what authority do I have as an evangelical to say that what Christ said was a metaphor? I can't, I don't have that kind of, I cannot make that kind of distinction. I cannot make that kind of decision.
They can argue also, by what authority does the Catholic Church have the right to say, or the Orthodox Church have the right to say, well, this is the body and blood of Christ?
But I can always say that, I can always bounce that question back at them. By what authority do you have to tell me that I'm wrong? Because if you look at the arguments and the reasoning, quote unquote, of the use of sola scriptura, which is the Latin phrase for scripture alone, every person has the authority to interpret the Bible the way they want. So therefore, ergo, you have no right to tell me that what I believe is morally and theologically correct. So basically, a random ordinary person, he can be a born again or whatnot, he can come out and say, I believe that the words of John 6 are literal. But another evangelical can come along and tell them, no, you are wrong. That's not what the verse means. But the person but the born again Christian that actually believes in the literal translation of John 6 will say, but wait a minute. don't we believe in sola scriptura? So by your admission, if you believe that we all have the right to interpret the Bible the way we want, therefore you have no right to tell me that I'm wrong.
Interesting. And from what it sounds like, and this is, again, forgive my ignorance on the topic. I mean, like I said, Protestantism isn't a big thing in Lebanon, and
Yes.
I'm American. I live here, but I live with a very Lebanese community, and our churches and everything are typically Catholic. Doesn't that sound a bit arrogant to say, I have the authority to interpret something, the Bible, as I want to? Like for us, or for Catholics in general, we're taught humility all along, right?
Yes.
We're taught to be humble. We're taught to follow authority, right? And it's, to me, that's what the Bible teaches, humility, right? Jesus going down and washing the feet of his disciples, that took a lot of humility from him.
Yes.
And he says, go and be like me, basically, do this to one another. So from where I'm standing, when someone says that, or when you're explaining that idea, it sounds like arrogance to me, like as if someone is feeding their own ego to a certain degree, saying that I have the power and the authority to interpret the Bible as I wish.
Yes. If you think about it, I mean, you both Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox, we need to remember that we alone do not have the right to interpret the scriptures the way we want. And that is good, because that can take away a bunch of arrogance and pride. Because you and I, since we're Catholics,
it's
believe...
okay. You can say I'm Roman Catholic. I don't mind.
Well, I know it's difficult for me to sometimes, to say, what right you belong to, because considering, since you and I both follow each other on social media, that you attend your Eastern liturgies, but I mean, we're all siblings and we're spiritual siblings in the sacraments.
To be honest, I've been to more Roman Catholic masses in my life than I've been to Melkite masses, and that's because I go to daily mass, and daily mass next to my house is Roman Catholic, whereas Sunday masses, they're about like an hour away, or at least 40 minutes away from my house. So, and those are the Arabic ones.
Yes.
So that plays a part. But as you were saying, so Catholics and humility and authority.
Yes. So essentially, we need to understand that us as Catholics, we need to, through natural law and through common sense and logic, we all fall under authority. Even if you are like a whiny little teenager and that likes to rebel and that likes to do things the way that you want to do, you still fall under authority, whether you like it or not. And just because you may have particular people that in authority or in power that you may not like, that doesn't mean that the power that they hold is not true or is illicit. Mm-hmm. Regardless of the type of people that we have in the church who run things, we need to keep in mind that God's truth and our Catholic doctrines and dogmas remain the same. Just as Jesus said, I'm
sure that's what he said.
I'm the same always now. That I am the same always now and forever. So too we have to say that our Catholic dogmas are always the same now and forever. They cannot be changed.
I like that. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about what your work in social media, and how is the church acting in social media?
Gosh, where do I begin? Well, as you already know, I do a lot of work in Catholic social media with the pages that you've explained, which are Latin Catholicism, Catholic Theology, and Catholic Connect, the Spanish page. I started to do stuff in Catholic social media back in, gosh, it was, I believe, the around the summer 2014. So that was a
So
very, very long time ago.
that was way before you decided to convert.
Yes. And that
Interesting.
actually, being part of Catholic social media did play a huge part of my conversion, but more about on that later. But I remember because I actually had a huge, since even back then, I always had a huge admiration and love for Catholicism, and I wanted to share it on social media. And to make a long story short, I made an Instagram account, which I cannot remember the name on the top of my head, which was the name of my very first account, which the name of my first account is still my main account, like Catholicism, but it was under a different name a long time ago.
Mhm.
And I remember the Catholic Instagram community was not big. I
No,
was,
it's still not very
it's
big.
still not big, but it was not the same as it is today.
Hmm.
The thing is, it was, since there weren't that many, you had obviously, I remember Catholic Connect was there, but we didn't have that many followers. I remember other pages like Catholic Team Post, Catholic Imagery, Catholic Convert, and various others. But the amount of followers that they have now did not compare to how much they had back
Of
then.
course.
And I remember the very first month I had my Instagram account, I gained 1,000 followers, which was really fast because I was just simply just posting stuff. And then when I gained so many followers, I was shocked. Mind you, I was around during the time where Catholic social media giveaways were still new.
Hmm.
I gave the very first. I'm not trying to toot my own horn or blow my own ego when I say this, but what I was doing back in 2014 really made a big contribution because I remember giving a shout out to the very first Catholic Instagram page that ran rosaries that made custom
Yeah.
rosaries. I've I gave a lot of shout outs to a lot of different accounts, and obviously a lot of the old accounts that were there back in the day, they're not here anymore for personal reasons and for others. Um, so much has changed, and obviously for some time when I was running my page, I did take a break from Catholic social media for like about a couple years, and I came back. To make a long story short, I came back to Catholic social media around early to mid 2018, which is around the time you probably met me. And I started posting again, but I felt like I missed a lot.
Hmm.
I remember coming back to it, and when I started posting on that particular page, which was Latin Catholicism, I made a particular post about a member of the British royal family converting to Catholicism.
Oh, I remember that one.
Yes, it was the very first post that actually in my life that actually reached 1,000 likes, and it went
So,
viral.
l-
And I was shocked when it went viral because the very cap the very caption I used to make that post was also used in other Catholic news sites. And I was like, wait a
that's
minute,
very
no
interesting.
way.
Yeah.
Because I was the first Catholic social media account, well, to actually report on this. Because all the people, some of the people that were reporting the princess's conversion to Catholicism, it was all some of them were secular news outlets. And when I shared it, it went viral, like I said, and I was shocked.
That's amazing. So for people who are starting social media or Catholic social media pages, I want to provide a different alternative. You've said that when you started posting, you quickly got 1,000 likes. You started in 2014. I started posting things or making videos about Jesus in 2011.
Yes.
And maybe a little bit more earlier than that, actually, with my senior year in high school.
I was in middle school.
Yeah. And it took so I didn't post. I posted maybe once a week, and it wasn't very consistent. The quality wasn't very good. The reason why my page on Instagram is called at the word with Rita is because I had in 2012 I had a TV show called The Word with Rita, and the word being Christ.
Hmm.
And even with that, it took me a very long time. It took until I posted 2 years ago, maybe. I posted a video in Arabic, and it was one of the first videos that I did in Arabic, um, on something that happened in church, and it was about Saint Sherbet. And up until that point, I had never reached such high numbers, and it by the next day had like 20,000 views.
Oh
So it was
wow.
crazy. The story that I want to share with people who are doing this is, one, why are you doing this? So for me, it was, if I could help one person get to know Jesus more, then I've done my part.
Hmm.
And if that one video, only one person watches it and somehow their life changes a little bit, then that was sufficient for me to actually do the work.
Yes, because no matter how many followers you have, if you're able to influence one person, you already are an influencer.
And it was a big deal for me to be constantly doing that, because in my heart I knew that I wanted to tell the world. Jesus says, "Go and tell the world," and I found that digital media and digital marketing and gets you to the world. When Peter had to take a boat to Italy, when Paul had to walk to Damascus and to Syria, I didn't have to. I just put hashtag Italy and I'm in Italy, hashtag Damascus and I'm already in Damascus, as Paul was. And
Yeah.
so for those who are looking at creating content that's about God, one thing that I can say to you is, don't be discouraged. Not everyone's story is going to be, oh, by the next day I had 1,000 followers. I guarantee you that the majority of us, and that was my story, and the majority of you, if you're creating content about God or really content about anything, it will take a very long time. And you guys know that if you listen to the station a lot, then you know that I also have a digital marketing show, and I have a digital marketing company. And coming from that perspective, I can tell you that for your content to pay off at even the slightest bit, it generally takes about 18 months.
Yes.
So, and that was just like a bit of an insert for the listeners, because I encourage them to create Catholic content or Christian content and to talk about God at any given opportunity.
Hmm.
Did you find that I know you said you lost a lot of friends during your conversion period, but did you find that some friends you didn't expect were listening to the message?
Gosh, like, where do I begin on that? I mean, in the process with me losing a lot of relationships or close ties with family members and whatnot, I've also gained new relationships and friendships through over the years. Obviously, a lot of those friendships I made over the years, I mean, obviously things have changed. We don't talk to each other that much. I mean, we don't keep in contact with one another that much. But obviously, I'm still grateful for that kind of amnesty. Um, I'm sorry for
So
that.
I found that when I would post things, the randomest people that I never thought would be interested in content that talks about God, I found them like over the years messaging me and saying, "Thank you for posting this."
Yes, and I
And
get that a
how
lot.
was how was your experience with that?
I mean, with me running 3 accounts now, I mean, obviously it's been very difficult managing, multiple at the same time, but just hearing people messaging me now, telling me thank you for what you do, or whenever I do live streams now through Instagram Live, people just tell me thank you. And whenever people see me in public, because I actually had people, whenever I walk around in public, there have been people who actually came up to me and said, "Hey, you're that dude on Instagram." That's me. That's me. And people will, I mean, despite people wanting to take pictures of me and just chat with me, like the number one thing that they will always say is, keep doing what you're doing and thank you for what you've been doing for Catholic social media.
You know, one of the biggest like uh, memories of my life in doing this was I do an app called I Got Today, and it's
Mm-hmm.
part of uh, WordNet Productions. Oh my gosh, I lost the name for a second. So WordNet Productions, WordNet TV, they have an app called I Got Today where they do daily reflections on the Bible. I
Mm-hmm.
started doing this, like I said, back in 2011, and around that time, um, I basically go to the studio, say what I have to say, and I leave, and I literally forget everything that I said as soon as I walk through out that door. A few months after, I would go to the church or to the studio, and the priest looks at me and he's like, "Hey, I have an email for you." I'm like, "Okay." So I got to read this email from a man who saw my video and someone else's video, and he said, "I saw your videos. I'm still crying," and it turned out that that man had cancer.
Oh, wow.
And he was losing his job, and he was going through all these bad things that are going on in his life. And he found hope in a message that that I said and someone else said in their video. And to me, it was like a shock, or one of these moments that you will always remember, that said, I'm actually doing something. Even though I don't know this man, when I made the video, it was not my intention for me to speak to him, but God, it was his intention for him to find that man.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to share that, because again, people out there, I need people out there creating more Catholic content, more Christian content, more things that for them not to be ashamed to speak the gospel and say, like, in today's world, I feel like people are always very, you know, cognizant of what they're trying to post because they don't want to offend anyone, but love never offends.
But love never offends, and if you are afraid of not of I'm sorry of speaking the truth and saying what needs to be said, then you have no business being on social media. One of the things that you need to keep in mind of being, as someone like me that's been on the platform for so many years, is that you are going to grow in many ways and shapes and forms, unlike the average Catholic. That, I'm not trying to be prideful when I say this, but you're going to grow very differently, particularly spiritually, because the amount of things that you are doing that are changing the lives of people that follow you, it's tremendous. And as someone like me that runs 3 accounts, obviously the pressure is big, obviously, because I've been reached out by a whole bunch of different Catholic companies, Catholic organizations, Catholic news outlets. And obviously I've been even reached out from people from Rome and from other places I never even expected for it to happen. And I've made a lot of friendships and acquaintanceships and relationships over the years. And one thing if there's one piece of advice I would give for those who are starting to, if they want to make a Catholic social media account, which from whatever platform, the biggest thing I would give, like the biggest advice I would give, is just be mindful of what you say. Say the truth, obviously, but obviously be careful how you say it. But if you're doing it in the realm of spirituality, don't sugarcoat the truth, because if you are sugarcoating the truth to please other people, then you're not pleasing the big guy up there at all. You're making him really mad at you.
Very nice, very true. And I want to ask you, what's like a final thing that you would say to the people who are listening to us today? What's one thing, maybe about your experience with God, maybe about your experience in the political world, anything. So the platform is entirely open to you.
If there's one thing I would like to say to all of you, is that obviously this world is not perfect. There are always going to be ups and downs in whatever walk of life you choose to. and you are the very own author of your life. You determine what you want to do, and because of your free will, obviously God is not going to force you to do something, but keep in mind that he does want what's best for you. And hearing his will and hearing his words and hearing to his plea is one of the best things that you can do. Whatever path you walk on, whatever vocation in life you are called to, just be sure that you do everything for the greater glory of God.
Absolutely. All right. So that was a wonderful, wonderful interview. Thank you so much, Clyde Guzman, once again, for being here with us. And if people want to find you on social media, once again, run me through your Instagram accounts.
If they want to find me on social media, the account that I'm mainly active on is Latin Catholicism. So it's basically Latin Catholicism, just two words mashed up. And when you go through my page, you will see that I'm also an administrator for two other accounts, which are Catholic Theology and Catholic Connect, the Spanish page. But I
So
also
Catholic
encourage
underscore theology, and the other one's Catholic Connect, one word, .es, correct?
Catholic Connect underscore ES.
Catholic, okay.
But the main
Underscore
the main account that I'm usually active on is Latin Catholicism.
And that's where they can message you personally if they found something interesting on this episode or they just want to check out your page. Thank you again so much for being here with us today. You guys, I will be with you guys next week with a new episode. And until then, if you have questions about anything in this episode, I literally mean anything, or anything that you think I could possibly answer about Christ, about the church, or if you just feel like you need someone to talk to, I'm happy to be there to the best of my abilities, or at least refer you to someone who could actually be there at The Word with Rita, at The Word, not The World. And so if you speak Arabic, that will be Kilme, not Dine. And thank you so much for joining us. And I will be with you guys next week.